I know CrossFit kind of gets a bad rap in the fitness industry because you see like competitive CrossFit where people are using not so good exercise form to try and complete as many repetitions as possible in as least amount of time as possible. It is a bit controversial, right? I mean, I'll be first to admit I'm not a fan of kipping pull-ups and this type of explosive movement just the sake of completing as many repetitions as possible or doing as many rounds of an exercise as possible. But I am a fan of the theory of CrossFit, of combining different forms of exercise, strength, and stamina, and building a well-rounded level of fitness. I mean, I'm a huge fan of that. And I try to implement that within my own training, and I try to implement it within my coaching students' training as well. But we do so lifting with proper form, lifting within your means, not necessarily trying to keep up with someone who's at another level, which that often leads to injuries. Like you see a lot of people, they go to these CrossFit boxes and you're in a group setting and you might have someone who's really advanced and then you have someone who's so-so shape and then you have a beginner and they're all trying to compete with each other. And then you have the guys who are not as fit trying to keep up with the guys who are fit, and they're the ones who very often get injured because they're trying to do more than they can. They're lifting and pushing themselves beyond their means. Whereas if you set the competition with yourself and just try to be a little bit better than you were before, the risk of injury is much lower. And the odds of you being able to sustain this as a lifestyle is much higher. So that's what I'm a huge fan of. Like, I love the theory of CrossFit, but I'm not a fan of the way that it's implemented in a lot of settings. Now, I know there's a gazillion different CrossFit gyms and different coaches, different people may have their own philosophies of it. And so some people may follow a more healthy approach to it, but I'm not a fan of pushing people beyond their means and just letting the form go out the window in the process of trying to get as many reps as possible. I want you to do as many reps as possible with good form within your means while minimizing the risk of injury. Because I've said this time and time again, and I'll say it again because it bears repeating. The only thing that's going to slow you down in your fitness journey is an injury, right? If you skip a workout, in the greater scheme of things, it's not a big deal because you can always come back and train the next day. If you do an easy workout, you don't push yourself to failure, you just kind of go through the motions and it's really easy. Who cares? Because you can always go back and train again the next day. You can go harder the next day. Even when it comes to your nutrition, like if you blow your diet and you pig out, in the greater scheme of things, big deal because you can always clean it up and start again the next day. If you skip a meal, same thing. You can start again for your next meal. All these little things, they're little bumps in the road, and they're not going to help your progress, but they're not going to derail it. They're not going to set you back. They might not push you forward, but they're not going to set you back. But if you get injured, like you go into the gym and you lift beyond your means and you pull something, strain something, tear something, or hurt yourself, that is setting you back because you're not bouncing back the next day. Depending on the degree of the injury, it could be weeks or months, or in some cases years, or you may never fully recover from it, depending on what it is you do. So injury prevention is the number one thing that we need to focus on. And that's why within the workouts, I'm a huge stickler for strict form, lifting within your means, starting off below your capabilities. Like when you're starting a new workout routine, whether it is a strength training workout or a cardio workout, the first workouts should be easy. It should not be a challenge. You should be able to complete that workout and say, okay, it was fun. I enjoyed it, but I could do more. That's the way I want to leave people when I'm training people one-on-one in the gym and we're going through the first initial workout. We'll go through a training session, and at the end, a lot of times they're like, that's it? I'm saying, yeah, that's it. And they're like, well, I feel I could do more. I could lift heavier. I could do another exercise. Like I said, no, we're going to stop there today. You did better than you did before because, hey, before you weren't even working out. Today you went in and you did a relatively easy workout. Let's stop here today. And then the next time we come back, let's do a little better than we did before, right? So let's add another 5 pounds to the bar. Let's do another exercise, or we'll add an extra repetition or something like that. We'll find some form of progressive overload and we'll do that the next day and then the next day and the next day and just let it build up like baby steps. And the kind of the philosophy I like to have is let's focus on getting 1% better each day. That's it. Not trying to overhaul your entire diet and lifestyle from day one, go from 0 to hero. Let's just get 1% better each day. Let's dial it up one notch. And if you just dial it up one notch, is that hard to do? No, you could dial it up one notch and you don't even notice you did anything. It's so simple, so subtle. But what if you did that day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year? You just, each time you dialed it up one notch, one notch, one notch. By this time next year, you could look back and say, holy smokes, look at the transformation that just took place, but it didn't feel overwhelming and you didn't risk injury and it was very sustainable and enjoyable. And that's the key, is we want to enjoy this. One of the things that's a pet peeve of mine is when people hate their workouts or they dread their workouts. You should not dread going to the gym, or you should not dread your workouts or dread your diet or anything like that. You should enjoy it. You should look forward to it. Of course, there's going to be some days when you would probably, I'd rather hit the snooze button and sleep in versus get up and go to the gym. I mean, I get that, but it shouldn't be something that you're dreading or something that you're agonizing or, feeling pain and discomfort or anything like that. It should be something that you do. And once you get going, you actually enjoy the process. And once you're in that groove of you enjoying it and you're starting to look forward to these workouts because they're fun and they're energizing, they leave you feeling euphoric and feeling good about yourself versus feeling like you've been hit by a truck and you're beat up, then this becomes sustainable and becomes a lifestyle. And that's what we want. And the key to doing this is not hitting the red line, right? This is a common theme that I always tell my coaching students when we're working. We want to keep it below red line. Visualize driving your car. If you're always pushing it to red line and beyond, you're every time, you're red line shifting and you're pushing the limits, eventually you're probably going to blow the motor, right? You're going to have some trouble. But if you're keeping it below red line, the risk of having any serious damage is very minimal. Same applies with your fitness. You want to keep it below red line. And if you do that, then this is what leads to long-term sustainability versus that short-term intensity. And we don't want to burn ourselves out in the short term by going too hard too soon, right? We want to be good enough and good enough consistently. Or another way of putting it is we want to be consistently good versus occasionally great.